In this video I want to compare Supabase and Firebase, and I don't want to just compare pricing and some features, but implement a Supabase for a real project so you see how it is working. I already made a video where we used Firebase inside this to-do application that you can see here. The main idea is that you can add to-dos, remove to-dos, update them and so on. And we did that through Firebase. The goal of this video is to do exactly the same but with Supabase, so you can see the differences. And if you don't know, both Firebase and Supabase are SaaS solution, which means a service that you can use in order to implement backend for your project in an easy way, which actually means you just need to take some client-side like maybe Angular or React, and you don't need to know anything about databases or creating your data, and these services will do everything for you in an extremely easy way. And here you can see pricing. If you really want to compare it with Firebase by numbers, you can just open it and compare. But most importantly for this video is that we have a free tier, which is quite generous and we can use it. So with that being said, let's use Supabase for our Angular application to implement our to-dos database, which we want to manage. As you can see here, I just created an account inside Supabase, and this is how it looks like. I don't have any projects. So first of all, I will create a project. Here is a project name, for example, testing Supa, and we need a database password. For the database password, you can either generate one here or paste some strong password. After this, we can change a region. For me, Europe is just fine, and I'm clicking Create New Project. What we will use in order to communicate with Supabase is this library Supabase.js. This is an official library and we can use it in any framework. So let's jump inside our project and run npm install Supabase.js. As I already said, my project is Angular and I want to store such things like API keys from Supabase inside environments files. In the latest Angular versions, they are not generated by default, but we can use a generator npx-p Angular 17 if you are using version 17 and generate environments, and it will add two files to the project. As you can see, it created for me environment.ts and environment development.ts. And inside VS Code, I can jump to source environments, and here is our environment.ts. What we want to create here is two things. First of all, Supabase URL and then Supabase key. Now let's open our project that we just created in Supabase and scroll a little bit to the bottom, and here we're getting project and API key. So I'm copying here an API key and pasting here as well as project URL. Now I want to copy-paste exactly the same to our environment development, because we will use the same database for the production and for local environment. The next thing that I want to do is create a database that we can use and some data inside. So here on the left we're getting lots of stuff from Supabase. In this video we're only interested in database. So let's click on database. As you can see, no tables created yet. Here we can click new table and the name will be, for example, to-dos. As you can see, there is a checkbox enable row level security. We want to remove it. As you can see, we're getting a message. This table will be publicly readable and writable. And yes, this is fine. We can click confirm because we're doing it only for testing. The main difference between Firebase and Supabase is that Firebase is non-relational database and Supabase is relational and it is built on the Postgres. So here it is possible to force lots of rules about who can manage your tables, what are relations between your tables, and it is done in an amazing ways based on Postgres. So here you can provide different level of securities for different roles of your application, but as we just want to manage our posts without any security, I will disable this option. Additionally, here we can use real-time if we want subscribers or Socket.io, but we are not doing this in the scope of this video. I'm clicking save and my table is created. Now let's click here on the right and select view table. As you can see, my table is completely empty, but I can click insert and here is insert row. As you can see, what we are getting is ID and created at. These are two fields by default. This is not enough for us. What we want to do, we want to insert some columns. And first column that we need is called text. And here let's provide a type. It will be just text. As you can see, we can provide default value, and here we can either set it as null or set an empty string. We don't want here default value at all, because text must be always provided for our to-do. And here is a checkbox allow nullable. We don't want this column to be nullable. Unique is not needed because this is just text and we don't need any constraint. I'm clicking here save and we created first column. As you can see here, we're getting ID created at and text. We can insert one more column, which will be is_completed. And here I'm using underscores because in Postgres we're typically using underscores. The type here will be Boolean. And here allow nullable we want to turn off. I'm hitting here save and all our columns are there. Now we can insert some data. So let's click insert row, and here the ID will be generated, created at also. Our text will be, for example, first to do, and this completed we can set to true. I'm hitting here save. We created one record. Let's hit insert row again. Here will be text second to do, and our is completed will be false. I'm clicking save. We successfully created two records. Now we can start using Supabase inside our application. And the main point is that our application is fully client. This is why inside app to-do services we have a to-do service, and we have different methods here which don't have anything with API. They simply update signals inside the service, and this is it. What I want to create now here inside our services, a new service, for example, to-dos Supabase service TS. And we will use this service to communicate with Supabase. So here on the top will be injectable, and we're exporting our new class, which will be todos Supabase service. And we should not forget to write provided in root. And the first thing that we want to do here is create a client. This is why let's try that we have a Supabase variable and we're calling create client from Supabase. Now inside we must provide our Supabase URL. We have it in environment.supabase URL and secondly environment.supabase key. In this case it knows to which Supabase account we need to talk to. The next step that I want to do is create a method to fetch a list of to-dos from our API. This is why here let's create a method getTodos, and it is an observable which must return a to-do interface array. So first of all, let's look what is to-do interface array. As you can see, these are 4 fields that we specified inside our API. Its ID text is completed and created at. So now here we can use Supabase, so it will be this Supabase.from, and inside we are providing a relation, so a table. Here will be our table to-dos, and after this we can write select, and here will be star, which actually means we want to select all fields from our to-dos table. But as you can see here, we are getting an error. A function must return something. The question is, when we're writing here return, we will get an error, because what we are getting from Supabase from select is Postgres filter builder with any to-dos unknown. And here is another thing that I really like about Supabase in comparison to Firebase. It really works amazingly with TypeScript. Supabase has a CLI tool which allows us to generate a database typing based on what tables and columns we have inside Supabase. This is why here I wrote npx Supabase generate types TypeScript, and here is the project ID. And after this we're saying that we want to save the whole database schema inside source app todos types database type TS. I'm hitting here enter, and as you can see my file was created. In your case, you must authorize first, so this command won't work for you. What you need to do, you need to execute npx Supabase login, hit enter, it will open inside browser your Supabase account, you just need to confirm it, and after this you will be logged in inside your CLI. And then you can execute the Supabase command again, and it will be executed just like by me. So let's have a look what it generated for us. And as you can see here inside source app todos types, we're getting new file database types TS. Most importantly, you should not update this file by hands, because every single time when you are changing your Supabase database, you simply want to regenerate it. And this is how it looks like. As you can see here, it covers all our tables, all our fields, and we can use it inside our project to simplify working with TypeScript. This is why here what we need to do inside our create client, we want to provide a database. And as you can see, it is coming from types database from Supabase. Now let's have a look on our array again. As you can see, it looks completely different because now we're getting lots of text about tables, to-dos, rows. ID is completely text, which actually means now we're working with data types that was generated based on our database. But most importantly to understand is what we're getting back from this select. You must always remember that it returns for us always a promise. I don't really want to work with promises inside Angular. This is why I want to convert them to an observable. So here we're getting our promise, and we can use from promise to convert it to observable. And here we can use pipe and map, and we're getting some response. Now let's have a look what we're getting inside. We can type response dot, and we're getting here count, data error, status text, which actually means we are always getting data and error inside. And we need to use these two fields in order to render something on the screen. In our case here, I want to return response.data, and here I want to fall back to an empty array. Why is that? As you can see here, this is an array of our to-do interface, which is completely correct, or null, and this null is not good for us because we want to return inside getToDos an array of to-dos. And now here we don't get any error. So now let's try to use this function. I want to jump inside todos component, and as you can see, this is a place where we want to fetch to-dos for our application. And in order to do that, we must inject here our to-dos Supabase service. By injecting our service that we just created, it's our to-dos Supabase service. Now inside our ng unit, we can write to-dos Supabase service dot get to-dos, and we know we're getting an observable back, so we can subscribe, get a list of our to-dos, and update them inside our service by calling this to-dos service dot to-dos signal set, and here we're providing a list of to-dos. So our to-dos service is just a client side. We simply update plain data. Our service is working with API, and after getting the data, we will always execute our to-do service. As you can see in browser, we successfully got first to-do and second to-do. Now here I want to open network and reload the page. As you can see, it made a request to our API, and as a response we got an array with first to-do and second to-do. So this is exactly how we're working with Supabase. Now let's implement creating of our to-dos. This is why here inside our Supabase service we can create an add-to-do method, and we just need here a text which will be a string. Back we must get an observable of to-do interface, so of the created to-do. So first of all here let's prepare our to-do to create, which will be an object with text, and also property is completed with underscore. And we are setting it to false because all default to-dos are not completed. Now here I want also to create a promise by calling this supabase.from, and here again we're working with our to-dos, and here we can write .insert to create a record, and inside we are providing our to-do to create, and here after we want to select star, so select all fields, which actually means it will create for us a to-do and will respond with all its fields. And after this I want to write .single in order to get just an object, not an array with a single element. So here we got our promise, but now we want to return an observable. So again, let's use from, provide inside our promise, and pipe it. So here we have our map function where we're getting our result, and we want to read here result.data. As you can see here, we're getting an error again because it said that it can be null if our to-do won't be created. Realistically, it is true because we might get an error, but we don't really want to focus on catching errors here. But obviously you can do that. You can read result error and render an error instead. But here I just want to put an exclamation mark to tell TypeScript that data will never be null in this case. So our add-to-do method is created. We must jump inside our component's header. Here is our header component, and here we need to create our to-do. So again, first of all, we need to inject our to-dos Supabase service. And here will be inject to-dos Supabase service. And now let's use it to add a to-do. Again, the same idea. First of all, we're calling our Supabase service and method add to-do. We're providing inside text that we filled, and in the subscribed we will get our created to-do. And now we can use this created to-do and pass it inside another service, which will be to-do service.addToDo method, and we are throwing inside the whole created to-do. After this, we should not forget to empty our text, because this is our input. Let's have a look here. We have an input. I can write third to-do. I'm hitting here enter, and as you can see, this is our third to-do. You can see a network request, which created a record for us. Now I'm reloading the page, and third to-do is in database. We can jump inside our project, and as you can see, third record was created here. Our next step is to implement removing of our to-do. So again, in Supabase service, let's implement remove to-do function, and we need here a to-do ID, which is a number. And back we want to get an observable of void, which means we don't really care about response, we simply need to know that it is finished. This is why here first I want to create a promise by calling this Supabase from. Again, we have our to-dos, .delete, and it will delete a record, but just delete will delete everything. We want here to provide match and write our predicate, and it will be ID equals to-do ID. Which means this line will remove just a single to-do by this to-do ID. After this, we want to use from to get back an observable, but we also need to map it, because we will get a response. As you can see here, it's a Postgres single response. With null, we don't want that. This is why here I just want to create a map and don't return anything at all. In this case, it will be void, because my function does not return anything. So now let's use this function. We must jump inside our to-do component, and here we have a remove to-do function. So first of all, again, on the top, we must import our service, which will be to-do Supabase service. And now inside our remove to-do, we can call this to-do's Supabase service dot remove to-do and provide inside this to-do ID. We need to subscribe to make sure that it was removed, and only after it was removed from the database we want to call our to-do service with remove to-do and provide inside this to-do ID, which is just an ID of the record that needs to be removed from the client. Let's have a look here. I am reloading the page. I am clicking here on the cross, and third to-do was removed. I am reloading the page, and we are getting just two to-dos. And the last thing that we want to implement is the updating of our to-do. This is why here let's create a function update to-do. We need to provide first of all a to-do ID that we want to update, and secondly data to update. And here we need to specify the data type. Here it always must be a text string, and also is completed property, which will be boolean. And back I also want to get an observable of void, which actually means we don't really care about response. Most importantly, our update to-do must always update text and is completed, but in different cases we might want to provide different information inside. So again here let's create our promise by calling this Supabase from. Here is our to-dos table, .update, and we're providing inside our data to update. Again, here we must use match in order to update just a single record by ID, and our ID will be a to-do ID. And here we want to transform our promise to observable. So here let's use from promise, pipe, map, and inside we just want to return an empty function. In this case, we're not getting anything. And we can use this method in different cases. First of all, let's jump back inside our to-do component, and as you can see here is a function change to-do. So here we can call our to-do Supabase service .update to-do, and we want to provide inside first of all an ID that we want to update. It will be this to-do ID, and secondly data to update. And as you can see, our data to update is our text and is completed. So basically we don't overwrite is completed, we just overwrite the text. But we must provide the whole object inside. After this, in the subscribe, we don't care about our response, but we need to call our to-dos service. So here will be change to-do method, where we're providing this to-do ID and also this editing text, because this is exactly what we're updating inside. Let's check this out. I'm trying to update second to-do. Let's write here updated, hit enter, and reload the page. As you can see, it was updated inside our database. And in the same way, we can implement toggle to-do. I want even to copy this code completely because it is similar. Here is our update to do, but data to update is different. We don't change our text, but we're inversing our is completed. We're calling here update to do, but instead change to do, we want to call a function toggle to do from our service. And inside we're just providing an ID and nothing else. Let's check if it's working. I'm reloading the page. I'm toggling second to do, reloading the page. As you can see, this to do is still completed. And the last thing that we need to implement is toggle all to do. So we want to jump inside our main component, and here we want to inject our to-dos Supabase service. And now here on the bottom we have toggle all to-dos. What we're doing here, we're collecting the array of observables from our to-do signal, and here instead of null, we need to collect our API calls. This is why here we want to return this to-do Supabase service dot update to do, just like we already did. We're providing inside an ID that we want to update, and here we're providing the text. It's to-do text. We don't update that, but here we're setting is completed to target checked. This is exactly the value from our checkbox. So what it does, it collects all these requests and then makes fork join to update all of them. Let's have a look here. I'm reloading the page. I'm toggling all to-dos. They are all not completed. I'm reloading the page and they are staying not completed. So this is how we're using Supabase inside our Angular application. If you are interested to compare it with Firebase, I already covered it in this video, so don't forget to check it also.